A big thing now is how much people, really hype up relationships and partnerships, and realizing that it's not all that it seems. And I feel like a lot of people have this over romanticized version of relationship. And yes, it's going to be this great thing where you can communicate how you feel and have this companionship and actually have something real and tangible, and it is all these very great things, but it won't solve everything. It won't break you out of the sadness you're in. It won't bring you, a new purpose in life. Your relationship is a companionship you have on the side while pursuing what's important to you. That is your support system. That is something that you kind of commit to and have long term. And I feel like a lot of people have definitely hyped up relationships. They don't understand what actually goes into it. You have to find yourself before finding another person. That relationship won't save you, it won't bring you anything that you are missing out on. I think a lot of people forget that. You have to find your soul before finding your soulmate. And when you're looking to have relationships with people and you don't actually know yourself too well, it's going to be so much harder to actually do that. Now when you're looking at relationship, you're going to realize that you don't have your own perception, your own idea of yourself. You've been consuming what other people think of you. You've been living to others' expectations because you haven't set any of your own. And when you live like this for so long, it's going to be very easy to bounce around to several different people because you're looking for that comfort that ultimately you have to give yourself. That validation from the outside won't mean a thing if you don't know what you actually crave, if you don't know what you actually need in order to have these relationships, in order to have these connections. It's important that we use that solitude not to feel sad or not to dwell in it, but to find ourselves, and create it. You get to add to yourself time and time again. I feel like a lot of people forget that that is the importance of growth. That is what you are supposed to do when we are, taking that time to heal or taking time away from people. You don't have to force that relationship. This relationship won't save you. It won't bring you anything that you're missing. It's only going to bring you disappointment. You're not going to know what to do in this relationship because you don't know who you are. And that goes with what you want and what you're looking for. And I think a lot of people don't exactly know what to do once they get there. It's about that finding and creating yourself. And I feel like saying creating yourself is because you get to add on to it. You get to do so much more than what you really think. And that's so important. That is very important in that relationship, is being, a lot more comfortable with what you're able to do. You don't have to understand everything. And I think when you overanalyze life, when you overanalyze just about everything, and you're looking around, you're waiting to find, answers and closure, you don't have to do that. You can just live your life. You don't have to have this strict program, this thing that's holding you back or changing what you feel. You have to realize that growth is all on you. There's an endless amount of times you can change. There's an endless amount of what you can do, and I think a lot of people forget that. There's an endless amount of reset buttons you have in your life. You don't have to live in the past all the time and be defined by the things that you've made mistakes on. Those mistakes are meant to guide you. They're meant to, create you into this person that you are supposed to be. When we're living so much in the past, we forget that we are not our past. You're not going to be this thing forever. You're not going to be how this person treated you, but you are yourself. And with that, you are capable of doing whatever you want. You are able to change yourself and constantly evolve without ever having a prime if you want to live this way. You have to want that for yourself, not for other people to see it, but to understand this is something that you have for yourself. It is your own internal value speaking. And a lot of times when you aren't looking for that outside validation, that's what a lot of people will miss. That's what a lot of people won't realize that is actually going on, because you've transcended. You've understood what has gone on in your life, and you're able to be aware of it. You don't have to overanalyze everything and hope that everything's perfect. You just have to be you. You have to live. You have to wait for, the mistakes, the struggles, the problems, and live through it. You have to be confident enough to know that whatever obstacle is placed in your way, you are still able to get over that thing. And that is the most important part of having that soul you're looking for. And I think when we are trying to have that, when we are wanting to feel, a lot more confident, it can be kind of hard, just because you're not completely aware of what's out there for you, but it's just what you want. And if you listen to what other people are saying and what other people have told you, like I said earlier, you're never going to know what you actually need in that relationship, in that said thing. And when we're looking at that, it really comes down to yourself. How much time have you given yourself? How much time have you, actually poured into yourself in order to find something? And I think we kind of lose sight of that. And I think when we're looking to have relationships, that's something that we forget, trying to understand why people hurt us or why people leave. People leaving isn't always a bad thing. You have to realize that you have to kind of experience it. In order to build a new path, you have to let those bridges burn. You have to stop letting these things be rekindled. You have to stop going back to people because you had some level of comfort there. You have to understand that when people leave or that when things end, we have to let it end. You don't have to keep reviving this thing or looking for something further just because you felt like maybe one day this was going to be your person. We have to let that connection die. When you're trying so hard to force that, you have to realize that it could be damaging. You are overwatering that plant, and you have to let it be an experience. You have to stop being so strict on yourself and forcing yourself to do these things you don't want to do. You have to understand that these connections will come to you, whenever. There are things that are going to happen that you have no clue about. And when you're forcing yourself to stay in the past, to stay looking in the rear view mirror when you're trying to drive, it's only going to get harder. It's only going to get more difficult. And I think a lot of people are stuck doing that. A lot of people are stuck, reliving that same cycle. And that cycle is going to continue until we decide to break it. Until we decide that we do want more for ourselves, that we're not going to live in the past and we're not going to focus on these things. We're going to keep living the same day over and over. And that's not what you want. That's not the life that you are given and gifted to. That's something that you're living with regret. You're living without promise, without feeling ready for anything. And I feel like when you are trying to find yourself, understanding that loss, that grief, is something very real, because you will experience that. I'm not going to sit here and say that finding yourself is always going to be this great glamorous thing. Really it could be just as painful as anything, painful as any breakup or missed relationship or whatever that thing may be. Grief can be something that we struggle with a lot. And I don't think a lot of people are aware of how much it could really change you. That's one of the hardest things to ever get over, because I feel like we don't actually get over it. It just happens and it passes. Grief is more about appreciation rather than missing that thing. Grief is kind of like the souvenir you're given when love is gone, and I feel like a lot of times we are able to appreciate that these things happen, appreciate that, this connection or this thing was able to be given to us, rather than missing that it, was even there. And I think when we are able to appreciate and kind of show that gratitude and to say that, whatever happened had already happened, it's a lot easier to move forward. To move forward without feeling like we are anything less than, or that we're not going to have, anything real. And I think it gets hard to accept it. And I feel like if we want to feel better, that optimism is something that we're going to experience, but it's same with the hurt. And what I mean by this is saying that you have to live comfortably with pain. And I think that is a lesson that a lot of people have missed out on, because so many people are scared to live in sadness or to live with some sort of thing that might hurt them or whatever that thing may be. Really, that is what you're going to have. That's what you have to do in order to feel comfortable, in order to have something real, something, tangible. And it could be hard. It could be really hard. You just have to live your life and not wait on people to change that for you. That's what it means when you are looking to have, something real or something that brings you actual promise.